Okay, after a short break, we are coming back to our Earth production stage in Games Gathering. Today is first online day, and it's one of our last speech in our hall. So I'm welcoming on stage our guest Vivek Vidyasagaran. He's the CTO in Pine and Lyman Corporation. We are so glad to see you here and with so interesting topic, games as a medium for impact. So the stage is yours. Here is your presentation. Nice to see you, Vivek.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is a really cool opportunity. So I'm glad that I got this opportunity to talk to you guys. Yeah, and I guess it's been a long day for you, so bear with me as I finish my speech on games as a medium for impact. A little bit about me. My name is Vivek. As you mentioned, I've been in the games industry for about 10 years or so, and uh, I got my master's in entertainment technology at Carnegie Mellon University, which is a university here in the US, and then I did work basically as a software engineer in a couple of game companies, mostly working on like kids educational games, like Osmo and Synthesis. And then now I run my own company, Panel Lime. We do like social games, and so like through my journey, I've been sort of like uh, looking at this sort of movement of games being used for more than just like entertainment. And so that's kind of like what I wanted to talk to you about today. So let's get started. So when you think about video games, many of you probably think about something like this, right? Zelda, Breath of the Wild. It's just like beautiful world, and it's like this high budget experience, and it's like you pay a big money up front, and then you get to play the whole game, and it's great, right? Like this is definitely a great game. But then some of you might think about like mobile games, right? Like Clash of Clans or whatever it is. These are also quite high budget, and they're well produced, and these are also video games. But there's like this new crop of games that are starting to come up nowadays, and it's always been there, but like a more casual sort of game. Yeah, basically casual games, hyper casual games, things like that. And this, for example, is LinkedIn's games. Now, I don't know if LinkedIn does this whole game thing outside of the US, but at least in the US, there's games on LinkedIn, which you don't expect. But they kind of have a whole write-up about why they've been doing this. And I suspect it's mostly like retention, like getting people to come back every day onto the platform, things like that. It's true of YouTube too. YouTube has games, and it's a similar reason, I imagine. And this is a super interesting tweet by Matthew Ball, who's an analyst in the games industry. And he talks about the New York Times, which is like, the newspaper. And this graph shows like the amount of time that people spend on the website and what they spend it on. So the purple thing, I apologize if you can't see that clearly, but I can just explain it. The purple is news, right? So like news articles and things like that. The green is games. So you can see like, a couple of years ago, news was far more than games, but today people spend more time on the New York Times website playing games than they do reading news. So it's a big, uh, uh, part of their whole experience nowadays. And this is true for like many companies. And so there's this sort of like movement, right? And the question is like, how is that happening? Like, why is that happening? So I think there's like all these tailwinds that are helping this uh, become like more popular. For example, dev costs are going down. Like you have like great game engines and other frameworks to help you build things quickly. The barrier to entry is lowering, especially with AI nowadays. People like even people who don't really code can start building little games and things like that. And then new platforms like mobile and web and web especially of late has been getting very performant, and you can make like really good experiences just on the web, and then have a link that you share with people. So it's things like this tech advancement that are enabling this sort of new uh, direction and new home for games. So essentially, games have become this medium for communication, right? Like before, when if you look at Zelda or something, it's like this beautiful artifact that like a lot of people sat down and they created it. But now it's I would liken games more to like writing, articles or painting a picture, right? Like you can paint like a really high quality picture, or you can just scribble something, and the goal sometimes is just like to communicate something, right? And so games have this as the barriers to creating games come down, it starts picking up this quality of just like being a medium of communication, which is very exciting. And I think that's what enables games to do more than just entertain. So, some fields that I think picked this up early is education and fitness. And I've been sort of involved in the education industry, uh, and sort of saw this getting picked up. And I'll talk a little bit about my experience there. But yeah, these two were kind of like early to adopt games. But then nowadays there's like so many other aspects of games. And just like I showed you, like social media platforms are picking up games. There's transmedia, which I talk about, Netflix, and relationships, and which I'll also talk about. So let's sort of dive into these one by one. For education, you probably are all familiar with Duolingo. It's quite popular in the US anyway. It's basically a language learning app, and they kind of got famous for using a lot of like gamification and game concepts in their apps to motivate you to keep learning a new language, and it works quite well. For fitness, I have here Supernatural, which is like a VR fitness experience, I guess. And the cool thing is you're like moving with your body and like playing the game with your entire body, and that kind of like is a natural workout, and it's a great use of games, right? Like beyond just entertainment. TikTok. So yeah, I have a video here, but it's not going to play because it's a PDF. But this video is great. It's just like just someone just having fun playing a silly game on TikTok, and what you'll see if you see the video, what you'll see is that there's like that genuine emotions that come out, right? Like the close calls and like the feeling of achievement when you finish the game, and those things are like really good content for TikTok videos, and you can't just manufacture that outside of that. Like you could do a dance or something, which is what a lot of people do on TikTok, but games sort of give you this new dimension to play with, so which is super fun. And then yeah, Netflix, like I mentioned before, uh, and I don't know what the library of stuff that Netflix shows in Ukraine, but at least in the US, Stranger Things and The Queen's Gambit and all that are like super popular. And what's interesting is like, so they've made all this IP, right? Like Stranger Things is a Netflix original IP, and they've made like shows. I think they're like season 4 or something now, and that's cool, right? Like all the fans can get a lot of the story from the shows, but they always want more, right? And how many seasons can you keep making? And making TV shows take time, right? So this is kind of like an alternate channel. Is that they start making games out of the same IP, and so fans of the franchise are able to like get their fill of the story outside of just watching the TV show, and now they can do it, on the bus or on the go, and it's quite convenient. And then yeah, this kind of was the inspiration for Pine and Lime as well, where we sort of take inspiration from meaningful moments in relationships, like interpersonal relationships, uh, and sort of make games out of those. So this, for example, we call Zwakami, and is basically an apology game, right? So if if you did something to piss someone off, you kind of like make this game and you put your face as the character, and then they get to like smash it, right? So it's just like a little fun thing, but the key thing is it captures that emotion, right? Like there's that emotion of, oh man, I just want to whack him in the head type of thing. And this game kind of like lets you explore that a little bit. And the whole idea for Pineline is sort of making these games across all of the moments of relationships, like birthdays, anniversaries, and things like that. So, how do you create games that have impact? So the way I think about it is you kind of like take each component of a game. So I've just put down 4 here, but there's obviously a lot of components in a game. And then you take your secondary goal, right? So whether that's education or fitness or whatever it is, and you sort of inject it into one of these components, right? So in this case, it's mechanics. And mechanics is usually the most popular thing that people inject it to because it's the most obvious, but you can inject it anywhere. And I'll show you examples. So Braid, this is one of my all-time favorite games. It kind of uses this, it explores the concept of time, right? And time is like a deep part of the mechanics. So you can reverse time, you can change the way time flows. And so by integrating that into the mechanic, you're kind of forced to appreciate the concept in order to win in the game. And so that kind of like teaches you about it. Integration into story. This is Age of Empires, also a game that I played a lot. And this kind of like used story to explore, basically medieval history, right? And so I, for example, learned a lot about medieval history, and at least I had like a starting point to then go and research on other things that happened and things like that. So that was a great introduction to this stuff for me. This is Osmo, is one of the companies I worked at, and this is like an educational game to teach kids coding. And here you can see the character on the screen. It's basically we use the mechanics to teach them coding, right? So in this case, you can't just move by using the arrow keys. You need to like put down code that says like move up 1, move right 1, move up 2, and it also has a secondary thing of like the input system. So the input system is not the keyboard; it's like these little blocks, and you're actually like using your hands to move the blocks and position them. So it kind of used the input system into the game as uh, uh, the mode of teaching something. And you can do this badly. So this is an example of Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, which also used this concept of time and sort of reversing time and all that. But this was not well done, right? Like, for example, like you could only like reverse time, and you can only reverse a certain amount of time because of technical limitations. But in the game itself, it kind of like became kind of useless as a mechanic, and people only used it to sort of like as extra lives, right? So if you die, you can reverse time and you go to something else and you don't die. So this was I just put this here to make the point that integrating it is the first step, but then it's an art, right? Like you need to really think about how it integrates well. So that's how you sort of integrate that into one piece. But then what about the rest of the pieces, right? And my philosophy is always keep everything else as simple as possible, right? So your story, your theme, but just keep them simple, keep them obvious. Like in Braid, for example, they did this like really fancy thing with time in the mechanics, but everything else is like very standard, right? Like it's just a standard 2D platformer, and the story is just uh, a pretty standard like love story. So that kind of helps you as a designer focus on what matters to you, and everything else is just like default basically. And then don't forget to sprinkle the fun, right? Like this is the most important thing, and I think this is the thing that often gets forgotten when you're doing like educational games or fitness games or something. Is you kind of like lose track of the fun. Like you're so focused on trying to do the thing, the technical goal, that you're not thinking about the fact that it's a game and it needs to be fun. And so inject fun as much as possible. Find the fun, right? Like just it's not a game if it's not fun. Just because your game has a secondary objective doesn't mean it can be less fun. And I think this is if you take away one thing from this talk, it's this. It's that games have to be fun, and it doesn't matter whether you have other goals, but don't forget to find the fun. this I just put this here as an example of a game that, well, it's hardly a game. Basically, it's like a educational game, I guess. But if you take away like the graphics and stuff, it's really just like a worksheet. It's just 2 + 7 = what, and then you have 3 options, and then you hit 9. And just because they put a bunch of cars and stuff, it doesn't make it a good game. So don't do this, basically. So how do you make a game fun? And I think this is the sort of thing that like there's no clear answer. Like there's no like science to it. A lot of it is just intuition and then iteration. And I think this is just the best we have right now. Maybe one day we kind of understand the science of game design, and then this becomes like follow these steps and you get the perfect game. But for right now, it's just you just try things, right? And so the way it works is you draw on your creativity and experiences playing the games, and you test with real users, and then you repeat. And so every time you find some issue, you kind of use your intuition as a game designer to come up with a better solution, and then you test with real users. And then, yeah, so this is just ways that you can iterate faster. So this some of the things that I often try to incorporate in my game design is as many automations as possible. So like the scripts and stuff, so that your iterations cycles are shorter. Off-the-shelf tools, like I've often used Google Sheets and things like that to design levels because they have like it's really powerful tools, right? And so you don't need to like reinvent the wheel and make your own map editor and things like that. You just use whatever's available to you. And then mature frameworks, I think there's especially among programmers, there's a need to try the works and like engines and things like that. Everyone wants to make a game with Rust nowadays, but if you're trying to make a game that achieves some other goal, then it's very important that the game is stable and you don't spend too much time just like on the basic stability and stuff on the game. And so you want to use something that's proven and people have made games with before. So yeah, that's basically the summary of my talk. And yeah, so I just kind of like put in the main points about how do you make impactful games. Inject objective into a component of the game. Keep the rest of the game simple. Don't forget to find the fun. Make iteration as easy as possible, and iterate. That's the only way to get good game design, is just to like keep trying new things, seeing what people think, and going from there. So yeah, that was my talk. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Vivek, so much for such an interesting topic. Yeah, and what's like scenarios, on your opinion, makes the best impact now?
When you say scenarios, you mean like which sort of industries or?
Um, just the plot scenarios, maybe some game mechanics. What messages do you think we now should like bring to the audience? Just interesting in your opinion.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I think the stuff that I have here is yeah, this stuff, like this is kind of areas where these sort of games have made a lot of impact. I think there's this is the exciting part about this field, right? Is that like people as the ability to create games is spread across more people. More people kind of come into the into the industry and sort of like bringing their own opinions. Like for example, I've seen like a fundraising announcement through a game, right? So it's just like uh, not something you would expect. Like usually it would be like an article or something, but now it's like, oh yeah, you go through this world, and then every once in a while you get some information about the company. And so I think like the places where this would make the most impact is still unknown. Like it's already made a lot of impact on, especially education, right? Like a lot of education systems nowadays incorporate some form of games, but I think it's still a new sort of a field, and yeah, and we need more people to explore what's possible.
Yeah, really interesting and actual topic for nowadays, because like we are now in a middle of this big invasion of Russia, and I can see that it brings like more projects about our current experience. And this is the way to share maybe mm, this experience with the world too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like simulation games are a great way to sort of like get people to empathize with different situations, right? And so I think like even something like a Sim City or like a City Skylines, it kind of teaches you all of the complexities that go into like planning a city, and you never think about this stuff when you're like uh, reading an article or whatever. But when you're in the game and when you're like forced to make decisions, I think it's that's when it really makes impact on you. And I think that's the same for like geopolitics and things like that too, where a well-designed game that really like makes you make the hard choices would really like spread the message far better than any other thing.
Yeah, completely agree with you, because when we are playing a game, we have like receiving experience, yeah. And especially in education, it would be interesting not only like share the current experience, because honestly it's not the best experience last few years, yes, but also the question is how to maybe support the values which and highlight the values in games which will not bring something like this in future. um, I not even like talking about stuff what's going on now, because I'm not sure that we can do it through the games, yes, but at least we can use games in educational reasons, yeah, to like stop something like this in future, to prevent something like this, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Okay, I encourage you in our chat. I encourage our audience in our chat to ask questions. Yeah. And meanwhile, I really thank you for your speech. It was really, really interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thanks for
I
having me.
think, yeah, really good final for our first online day. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a good in-person conference after this. I'm bummed I'm missing it
Mm-hmm.
out, but yeah, I'm glad I could join you guys for at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe somewhere in future when it will be a calmer period, you can visit us offline too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then we could be connected in our Pine app. I can see like a lot of questions now, but maybe it will be something in future. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you for your speech so much.
Yep.
Yeah, and
All right.
have a
Yep.
good
Thanks,
day.
everybody.